Alright, I've rebooted my computer. It's still going slow as all fuck, but let's just go on. It was incredibly overheated. The stuffiness made me feel like throwing up. I'm an otaku, but I'm not a fan of idols or seiyuu. So if I had to put it plainly, I hated this kind of audience enthusiasm. Yes, I can't really stand it either. When I went to the fair for anime and stuff, everyone was going insane at some cosplayers. I'm like, what the fuck, man? It's just a guy dressing like a woman dressing like Boa Hancock. I'm not going to go insane because she does the animation from the series Metal Heart. My one salvation was the fact that no one looked over at me, though I couldn't deny that I appeared really out of place there. The people ahead of me made it hard to see the stage. The lights illuminating it were dazzling, and I could just barely recognize about 4 people standing in the midst of the brightness. As the atmosphere overwhelmed me, Mizumi-kun handed me a plastic cup with juice in it. It seemed like that he'd covered the entrance fee. I had to make sure to pay him back later. The performance suddenly ended. The spectators clapped and cheered, as though it had placated them. Everyone lowered their raised fists. Thanks to that, my field of view cleared up, as if a path had opened from me to the stage. Now I could make out the face of the short-haired girl standing at the center stage. She was obviously a different person from the demon. Called it. Purple eyeshadow. The singer who does the ending theme to Steins Gate wears this exact uniform. On the album. The voice I heard through her mic was both similar and dissimilar to that of the demon girl who had thrown incomprehensible words at me. Just as Mizumi-kun had said, Fess had a worldly, weary atmosphere to her. She didn't feel boyish. At once cute and seductive, she bore about her a mysterious aura of distant solitude. The numerous silver accessories she wore about her body sparkled brilliantly in the light. They too seemed fantastical. I was starting to understand why people made threads about Fess on Achan. I'd assumed that band members would approach a live performance like this more explosively, but Fess spoke rather apathetically into the microphone. It seemed like the exact opposite of the adrenaline coming from the audience. Perhaps it was just her personality. But the fans learned from her example, going silent and listening intently to Fess's words as she emceed. What did she say? Coctus? What language was that? I see. Maybe she was assuming a stage persona as a part of the whole goth punk thing. Ordinary people would certainly have trouble understanding it, but by speaking so insinuatingly... Alright, who wants to be a bitch? Insinuatingly, she created the sense of something mythical, making her fans' hearts easier to take hold of. In reality, Fess was holding something peculiar. In her left hand was a regular microphone, but in her right hand she was gripping a mysterious-looking mic stand, one in the shape of a sword. Its form was so lovely as to seem sinister, and so sharp that it looked like it would slice your and so sharp that it looked like it would slice off your fingers in an instant if you merely brushed it. It was tremendously large, almost as long as Fess was tall. In addition, the portions of it with glass embedded in the shape of lines radiated an alluring blue light. I wasn't sure whether or not it was really a mic stand, but as a prop for contributing to her stage persona, it was sublime. My eyes became weirdly fastened to it. Next, Fess lightly hoisted up that colossal mic stand with her right hand alone. Still holding it with a reverse grip, she swept it out in a wide slash to the side. The blue light from the glassy parts traced an arc. That's so dangerous. What would she done if she'd hit a spectator? What if it weren't a mic stand, but instead a sword? And in order to offer fresh blood up to the demon girl, she used that sword to cut the throat of a single audience member each night or something. If so, it would indeed make this live show a black mass hosted by devils. A chill shot through me, and goosebumps rose all over my body. I think it'd be best to get out of here as fast as possible. As I began to think that, Fess murmured softly.
次は3曲目。在下に契約の地を。
Even vaster cheers of delight rose from the audience. Immediately afterward, the other Phantasm members started moving simultaneously, and for a second time the sound came flooding into my ears. The roar seemed like it would rupture my eardrums. Won't everyone's ears all go funny from being in a place like this? When I looked over, Misumi-kun was totally into it, bumping his fist to the rhythm in the same manner as the other spectators. When the intro ended and Fess started to sing, the lyrics made me go tense. Look, we've got the guy from Gundam Wing on the drums. We've got Julio, who got his hair dyed blonde from Zero no Tsukaima, on the guitars. And we've got who could we call this guy? We've got that guy from come on. Come on. Neon Genesis, who also dyed his hair. It was a prophetic song whose lyrics had been pasted into the channel. A dark song that didn't let you sense the slightest hope of salvation, partly because of the lyrics, but also because of the melody. It felt like something religious. The audience members who had first been going wild became less and less active as the song continued, until everyone was standing in the place without uttering a single word. On the contrary, however, it was because they were so captivated, and among them there were people who gazed fixedly at Fess with faces of those drowning in ecstasy. True enough, Fess' voice possessed some quality that attracted people to her. Even as I battled the fear and nausea induced in me by the crowd around me, I was listening carefully to keep from missing parts of her song. I can't hear shit. At the end, she repeated the chorus over and over. Strike the stake, tear open the darkest night, bathe in moonlight. As I listened to that phrase, I recalled how the demon girl had slowly turned around to face me, splashed in blood as she stood before the nailed-up corpse. My skin prickled with goose flesh. I had the sense that the air around me had instantly dropped several degrees in temperature. The song was over. Fess soaked in the reverberation of her performance, gazing down and softly swinging her body from side to side. Then she abruptly raised her head. Without warning, without any hesitation in her gaze, she looked at me. This is going to be great. It wasn't merely a matter of her looking in my general direction or of our eyes meeting for a single second. Fess was clearly looking at me. Steadily, staring fixedly, as though she were confirming my existence, as though she were searching for something inside me. Her gaze was extraordinarily searing, and for some reason sorrowful. Delusion times! Ooh, that was some lag. As I remained unable to tear my eyes away from her, she descended from the stage into the midst of the spectators. The other Phantasm members resumed playing, but Fess didn't sing. Swaying as she wandered through the audience, she languorously stripped off her top, exposing her sexy shoulders. The quiet fans became agitated with excitement again. All of them raised their fists and started jumping wildly. They made the floor shake as if an earthquake were taking place. Yet no one attempted to touch Fess, as though they were displaying their awe of a sacred being under ordinary circumstances. I am totally going up in this. Holy fuck. Slap my face. Seriously, this is dragging me in. Damn. I get immersed so easily in games. You wouldn't believe. Alright. As though they were displaying their awe of a sacred being. Under ordinary circumstances, if a star as compellingly charismatic as her went down among fans, you'd expect him to mob her. As a part of an unspoken agreement, a single rule, and of their own accord, the Phantasm fanboys forbade themselves to make contact with Fess's body. Even so, they felt her existence come very near to them. They tasted the scent of her sweat. They touched the same air as her. Those things granted her believers the highest possible joy. Perhaps she put on this kind of performance every time, or so I thought, but I doubted my eyes when I caught sight of Fess's next move. She had casually started undoing the belt at her waist. When she tossed it away, her fanboys reached out all at once, each fighting to make it theirs. Casting a sidelong glance at them, Fess unfastened her miniskirt. It fell to her ankles with a rustle. Hello. Her suggestive black underwear came into view. Fess seemed completely unbothered by the fact that her cultists were seeing her in a state of indecency. Had she gotten high on the ambience? Perhaps, or was it another type of performance, or less pure exhibitionism? I didn't know, but everything was about her was such a turn-on that my eyes became glued to her. Fess looked at me again. She smiled enticingly. Her gaze unmoving, Fess looked only at me. She approached gradually, as though she had fixed her aim on me. And having come right up to me, her sweet sigh grazed my face, and in much the same way as a lover would. As lovers would. She embraced me. What the fuck is this door I'm seeing? Her skin was damp with sweat. Her scent and her warmth were so alluring I almost had a vertigo. Her chest rose and fell rapidly, pressing tight against my body. It was said that singing could be exhausting, but right now her panting passed from her skin to mine, being transmitted to me directly. Her arms clenched tighter around my back, her nails ate into the nape of my neck, her thighs became entangled with my legs. I trembled all over, as if electricity had run through me. I could neither push her away nor return her embrace. All I could do was stand stock still, eyes wide. Her fans cheered again. This time it sounded as if they were close to screaming. The other members of Phantasm began playing more violently. Shouts of Fess' names reverberated back and forth in the small club. Voices crying, "Do it! Do it!" began to appear in the mix more and more often. What did they mean when they said to do it? I was completely at a loss. Fess, still holding me, said nothing. Seeking help, I looked for Mitsumi-kun, and was startled to find him sharing a deep kiss with a female spectator I'd never seen before. No, Mitsumi-kun wasn't the only one. The other cultists, male and female alike, were throwing away their clothes and embracing each other nude and kissing. Some had already begun to take things to their natural conclusion. Pandemonium, debauchery, sultry voices and cheering, the lewd sound of flesh rubbing up against flesh, borne up by Phantasm's music. These what took over the venue. A black mass. Let's have a black celebration tonight to celebrate the fact that we've seen the black of another black day. I understood at last. This was an obscene banquet held by the demon called Fess. Swearing loyalty to her and the devil, her believers became lost in their orgy. And today I was the demon's living sacrifice. Fess had chosen me as a partner. This was what it meant to go to one of Phantasm's shows. I too was getting swallowed up by the atmosphere. I felt my head start to go foggy. Anticipation for and dread toward what would happen from here on out. The sense of superiority and the rapture that came from having been chosen by Fess. It felt like I was about to go crazy. Crazy! Fess laughed again, close to my ear. I heard her clearly despite the fact that we were being swamped in the midst of so many overflowing sounds. She had such a sexy voice. Merely hearing it, I thought I might faint. But Fess tempted me further toward the abyss of pleasure. She softly bit down on my earlobe, blew her breath into my ear, and whispered, "Alrighty then."
Fess, Fess.
Absorbed in my fantasies, I sat in front of my PC. The show I'd gone to today had turned out to be nicely stimulating. As far as 3D girls went, Fess was pretty hot, but it had been way too packed with people for me to want to go back. In the end, I'd gotten sick from being in the crowd and I'd gone flying out of the club. Today's fantasy was top-notch. Who knew? Maybe Fess and Phantasm really did do that sort of thing. They just hadn't been in the mood for it today. Okay then. Time to get back to NCU or whatever. NCU was my daily life and a pleasant world. And my one comfort. What with how it let me escape from reality. To escape from reality. As long as I immersed myself in NCU, I could forget about all the bad stuff. I ceased being myself and ran about in Baslat as Neidhart. But Neidhart wasn't doing too well today. Of course, I knew it was due to how I used the keyboard and made decisions for him. But I had trouble accomplishing things I normally perform with ease. And though playing was supposed to comfort me, I got more and more irritated as I continued. I know it wasn't my fault, so I took it out on Neidhart. Scrunching up my hair, I kicked a metal-plated wall. Once I had completely worked off my fury, I took a sigh and leaned back into my chair. I blearily contemplated the monitor. Without me to operate him, Neidhart stood motionless at the entrance to Shangham City and stared off into space. I'd always fought enemies while watching Neidhart's back like this. Naturally, he had a maximum possible number of experience points.
僕の経験値っていくつなんだろう
Had the human being named Nishijou Takumi matured at all since he first began playing Enshu? No, rather, since the time he was born. If I'd grown up, why was I so bad at talking to people? Why was I carrying on the lifestyle of a borderline hikikomori? I'll explain to you while this happens. The reason why I'm yawning so much is because I've had a nose operation long ago. It's been almost a year now, and I have never breathed correctly in my entire life. So I can't talk and breathe air at the same time. Like normally you should be able to, between lines, breathe normally. I can't do that. I have to use all my might to pull in some air, because I'm used to breathing through my mouth. I've never breathed through my nose until last year, November. That's the first time where I actually could breathe through my nose. So to me it's really weird. With bad talking people, carrying on the lifestyle of a borderline hikikomori. If I didn't log in for several weeks, would Neidhart become a hikikomori as well? Whose eyes are those eyes? As I watched Neidhart's back, I suddenly remembered those words. I started to become a little curious about what Neidhart had got up to when I wasn't controlling him. I continued to survey him for some time, keeping my hands away from the keyboard and munching on my potato chips.
もしナイトハルトに自我があるとしたら
Surely he would go striding through Shangham City. Shoulder squared, he was the hero everyone worshipped.
ねえナイトハルト僕はいつでもお前を見てるんだぞお前はそれに気づいてるの
All of a sudden... Oh yes, this isn't gonna be creepy at all. Come to the 2D world. Neidhart issued 4 words, even though I hadn't typed anything in. Thinking it must be a hallucination, I rubbed my eyes, but his utterance still showed up on the chat window. The 2D world. You can become a hero too.
僕に言ってるの
Let's fight together. You're not interested in the third dimension, are you?
いや
Wait.
そうだけど
To think that he would start talking to me, the person behind him. Did Neidhart have a will of his own after all? Learn to breathe. Touch the monitor with your hand. Then you'll be able to join me in battle as Nishijou Takumi. I watch what will be. Whose eyes are those eyes?
だが断る
Alright, that should be at the end of it.
二次元世界に行くならせっかくだから僕はエロゲの世界を選ぶぜバゼラードはお前に任せるよナイトハルト
I cut the power to my PC as I answered him. New CG. Let me describe events exactly as they occurred. Today I gradually went to school. Then when classes got out, I somehow found myself going to buy a cell phone with my little sister. Come on! I think I might just be tired as well. You know, I always record this shit pretty late for my end. You probably don't have any idea what I'm saying, but I don't get how it happened either.
お兄何ブツブツ言ってんの それよりほら、この機種はどうかって聞いてるんだけど。
I want to hurry up and go home. How many times would it take before my stupid sister finally got the fact that I didn't even need a cell phone in the first place? When I got to school today, Nanami came all the way to my classroom to ambush me. After insulting me with, "It's so rare for you to be at school," she ordered me to come buy a cell phone for sure this time. Once the school day ended, I made an attempt to run away before she found me, but I'd forgotten how fast she was. And so our game of tag came to a swift end when she caught me and took me with her to the plaza by the train station. I didn't really want to come to the plaza. I never did. Even now, nausea had already begun to surge up inside me. Without any idea of how I felt, Nanami picked up a bunch of sample models from the display at the front of the store and grunted to herself as she looked at them. I struggled to comprehend why Nanami was giving so much thought to the matter of buying a phone for me. Naturally, because she was seeking my opinion, I answered her. Never mind the fact that I said I was okay with it. I no longer had any idea of how many times I told her, "That's fine." Despite the fact that she asked my opinion, she had no intention of actually listening to me. This is why 3D girls are the absolute worst. McDonald's, you say? You're telling me to enter that delinquent saloon, fast food shop? That stuff would be hell. I shook my head fiercely. I sighed and decided to leave without Nanami. As she examined the numerous lined up cell phones with an earnest look on her face, I secretly snuck away. As I started to head for the Shibuya 107 building, I caught the sight of a bizarre spectacle and unthinkingly stopped moving. What's that? Oh shit. Oh. Beyond the waves of people, a remarkably conspicuous girl was standing on the steps up to 107. I don't see any steps. Or are those them? What? I can't see her. Do you guys see anyone? I see her. Can't see shit, cat. The thing she held in her hand, was that a sword? Somehow, in both its color and atmosphere, it resembled the mic stand Fess had used during his performance. In fact, it might be appropriate to think of them as being part of the same series. I think it might be the girl we met at school. Purple hair, long hair. At any rate, it was a humongous sword. I think it might have been even longer than the one Fess had. Surprisingly, this girl with the sword was wearing a sumo uniform. From this distance, I couldn't tell what her face was like or anything, but even though she stood out so much, she watched the people walking along the road below with an air of composure. That must have taken a hell of a lot of courage. I seriously had to give her mad props. Walking around in the middle of Shibuya, carrying a toy sword, what was this, some kind of BDSM play? I wonder if that sword was a cosplay prop from some new anime or whatever, although I'd technically taken a look at all the recently aired new anime myself. Had there been one where a sword like that showed up? Was there a show I'd forgotten to watch? I certainly would have found it impossible to make myself carry that sword while walking around Shibuya, but it was a damn cool model. I kinda wanted one for myself. Maybe I'd find it being sold in Akiba, or would it be available online? Someone's elbow dug into my back without any warning. I came rather close to passing out in agony and collapsing on the spot. When I turned around, Nanami stood there imposingly with a furious look on her face.
もしかして逃げようとした？
Not a chance.
確かにナナが選ぶのに時間かけすぎたのは悪いと思うけどさ。だからって
Ooh, look at you.
左にして逃げようとするなんてひどいよ。
For the time being, I shook my head.
お兄のバカ、携帯の電磁波の浴びすぎで腎臓を悪くして死んじゃえ。
I don't get what you mean.
一生懸命お兄のために選んであげてたナナがバカみたいじゃん。こうなったらもう適当に決める。
Will you fuck off?
同じ機種で十分だよ。
Seriously, my external hard drive is going insane. Nanami grabbed my arm forcibly.
本気で今日契約するんだからね。それまで絶対逃がさない。
わかったよ。話せよ。
わかったならさっさと来て。
I was completely clueless as to why Nanami had gotten so angry. God, what an aggravating sister. Alright, we're going to save it here, actually. Sounds like a plan to me. Let's see how long we've been playing. 9 hours and 12 minutes. Wow. Alright, I'll see you guys later, and thank you for watching.